is enough, and it's time for a change.
Hi guys, it's Izaak with the Z, and I'm on the Keith Andrew Network. It is an honor to be here, and I'm really excited to get in.
For people who want to know what is the Keith Andrew Network, the whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities, to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. To prove to them, you still amount to something. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Andrew, and this is 1053. That is right, 1053 episodes. This will be aired on all social medias. As you heard from the recommendation, we have a great upcoming professional guest here only on the Keith Andrew Network. First question I want to ask you is tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Izaak. I prefer to be called Izaak with the Z, and I love food. I love trying different foods, and I am an actor that has started about 2 years ago, and I've loved acting very, very much.
No, absolutely. So the first one, I want to ask you the top 15 questions. You can have as much time as you like. The first one is, what attracted you to begin your acting career?
I used to watch, I watched the show Bunked. Have you heard of it?
Never heard of it.
Well, it's this show, and it's basically about this camp of like kids that it's a Disney show, and it's really funny. And I watched it, and I saw this character in it. I envisioned myself as him, and ever since I envisioned myself, I was like, I want to do acting. And I've booked a few things, and I mean, I'm really starting to, and then I look at myself nowadays and I'm like, wow, you're an actor.
No, absolutely. And you are a great accomplishment and inspiration for your people your age that say if you can do it, there's no limits. You know, for me, a lot of people say, because I have a disability, I'm an inspiration. I'm not an actor, but we're both in the entertainment business, and we're breaking that label. So that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. To prove to them, you still amount to something. You mentioned you started this for 2 years. What were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome?
So let's see. Some of the obstacles that I had to overcome is when I first started, I was getting a whole bunch of auditions back to back, and I also had to juggle school and soccer and piano. And I was just it was really hard not to just, just kind of want to quit. I really had to fight through, because I'd get really stressed because I'm like, oh, this is today and I need to get this audition done and blah, blah, blah. And that's one of the obstacles. Another obstacles is sometimes it's like you always get auditions at the wrong times. It's like the days that you are like, I'm bored, I want an audition, nowhere to be seen. But the days that you're like, finally, I don't have an audition, it's like, boom, audition.
Now you're a perfect example of that. I'm on the outside looking in, and you're the inside looking out. People for all you audition at one after another after another. For me, finding people to do interviews, especially now with the strike going on, wink, wink. I can interview wrestlers, I can interview music musicians, and I need to like scratch about, turn over rocks and find, okay, well, I can't interview this group of people because they're on the side of not doing anything because until, the strike is over. Well, what can I do in the meantime? And you can only interview the same group of people over and over. It depends. If you have great chemistry with the guests, you can have them on multiple times. However, if you have the same guest on multiple times, people would expect a different variation of the interview because you don't want to have a copy and paste. Oh, this is what you talked about last time, and this is like the third time you're having him on the show. How is this any different? And now, with that being said, for people who want to follow in your footsteps, when you enter into a classroom, are you just in, kid mode, or do you, in the back of your mind, saying, I'm a TV star and I'm a big deal? How do you separate the two? Like, how do you keep it humbled?
Well, part of it is, I mean, because at the same time, when you're really popular, fame is good, but at the same time, it's bad. Because that also means that more people are gonna, gossip about you and make up things about you. And so when I go into school, I'm just like, all right, I just I kind of go out of actor mode and into just kid mode. I'm living my life.
Yep, I agree. Now, the next one is out of everything that you accomplished, and you have a bright future ahead of you, but with everything that you accomplished for the past 2 years, what were some of your favorite skits that you ever done? And what were some of your favorite advice you ever been given?
So one of my favorite things that I ever did is I auditioned for Bunked, actually, the show that I could see myself on. And sadly, I didn't get the part. But and then, the new season of Bunk comes out, and I see my character on TV, and I'm like, wow, like, I'm just amazed because I'm like, I auditioned for that show. And then one of my favorite pieces of evidence, I mean, not evidence, advice that I've ever been given. Um, let's see. That's a hard one because I've been given a lot of really, really good advice from Nikki Peterson and their group.
One of the words of wisdoms I was told is enjoy the journey. It's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yes, that was one of the ones that I got. Another one that I got is like when things get hard, like if when you hit a brick wall, power through it.
No, you're absolutely right. And the next one I want to ask you is what were, as of this point in time, what were some of your career highlights?
Um, let's see. One of my shows that I booked just a few months back is called The 12 Mile. Hasn't come out yet, but it it was just really, I consider it a highlight because the feeling when you're like, oh, you got a call back, like, oh, you're to the next step, and then you do it and you're like, oh, whatever happens, happens. If I don't get it, I don't get it. If I do, cool. And then you get the email saying, hey, we want to do a chemistry read. And it's like, what? A chemistry read? And then the next email is, you're booked. And then it's just like, you the hard work that you put into all of the auditions and all of the callbacks and stuff like that, it just finally you reach it, and the feeling is just so magnificent. It's amazing.
No, I agree with you. Now, let me ask you this. When you walk into a class, can you stand in front of a group of people and be yourself? Or or are you still fighting off the stage fright?
Um, I can go onto a stage and be myself. I've learned when I first started, I did have stage fright, but I've learned that if they like you, cool. But if they don't, that's their problem. Like, you shouldn't take it personally if people don't like you. It's not your fault. And that's really helped me to just, be able to go on stage and be myself.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of wish I had that mentality when I was your age. Now I'm like, well, as Anthony said, if you don't like me, the hell with you. There's the door. Make friends with the door. Be yourself. Be authentic. Don't try to be a carbon copy because people are going to see right through that. All you have to do is say, this is who I am. Accept me for who I am. If not, there's the door. There's so many people out there that put a persona on or mask, and you're probably wondering why I'm wearing these filter glasses. Is I blink too much when I talk, and plus with the anxiety, it helps me relax. So I guess, in a way, I guess it is a mask a little bit, but you have to make yourself comfortable. But at the same time, being in the entertainment world, you make yourself vulnerable. So you need to find that balance in between the two of that, okay, I want people to know this, but I don't want them to know too much, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Now, the other one I want to ask you is, besides me, obviously, have you worked with people with disabilities? And for people who want to fall into your footsteps, being use you for an inspiration, what words of wisdom would you say or give them?
So for the first part, no, I have not worked with anyone with disabilities. And two, if they were going to be like a YouTuber, or if they were to come into the industry, the words of inspiration that I would give them is I would probably pass down the advice of when things get hard, don't give up, never back down, and just push through. And in the end, sure, it takes hours and hours to follow that rainbow, but at the end, you get that pot of gold.
That's true. You brought up a good point that I want to ask you real fast. You mentioned people who want to be a YouTuber. My niece, who I think she's either 10 or 8, I don't remember. I think she's 10. And so the reason I ask is, how does one become a YouTuber? And is it better to have it take a long time than be an overnight sensation? When you became a YouTuber, did you want to be like, hey, I'm famous. I have thousands of people. I have all this. And in a blink of an eye, you get your 15 seconds of fame. In a blink of an eye, it can all be taken away. So do you want to be a fire in a pan of a one-hit wonder? Or do you want to rather say what I would say, it's been 10 years, 10 and a half years, and I'm slowly building up. I'd rather take my time and make a foundation than say, oh, hey, I saw you yesterday. You really blew up really fast. So, with that being said, do you want it to take a long time or do you want to be a one hit wonder?
I am, I would like for it to keep going. And if I don't have a lot at the beginning, oh well. If you just keep like I said, if you just keep pushing for hours and hours and hours to follow that rainbow, at the end, you will get that big pot of gold. And the big pot of gold is, being a sensation.
No, I agree with you. And I have people, not actually hitting me over the head, but verbally saying, hey, you've been doing your talk show for 10 and a half years. You have 1,053 episodes. If it's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to. One thing I would recommend to you is make a solid foundation. Go around, tell people your story, tell them what you're doing, and make a fan base. Once you have a solid fan base, you can, like a stack of cards, you can just go to the next level. My mistake was throwing crap against the wall and seeing what sticks. It's like, okay, try this, try that. And yes, it was moving, but people don't really interact with that, or they don't like, okay, they find it interesting. But what is the more, you have to be a storyteller. And by any stretch of an imagination, I am not a storyteller, but you have to make a solid foundation. That's one thing I would say to you is make sure you have a solid following, make sure people interact with that. And it's just, you take it from there. You can't just jump head first because you don't know what kind of results you're going to get. But I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But the next one I want to ask you is, I'm looking for a good question. Now, this is going back to the question I asked you earlier. What is your one claim of fame? Is it being a YouTuber? Is it a TikTok star? You mentioned the show that influenced you to become an actor. What is your one claim to fame and say, I did it and no one can take it away from me?
I want to be in a regular series show, a show that, like, Rico Rodriguez goes on for 10 years, like Modern Family, where it's not just, one episode or a little pop in. It's like a main character of a lead TV show.
It's funny you should mention that. There's a lot of cartoons don't really count, but Simpsons has been on for, I think, about 38 years, 37, 38. But there's so many other shows like Modern Family, Home Improvement. You look at Mari Cyrus, you look at iCarly, you look at Malcolm in the Middle. The point I'm making is you have a story. If as long as you have a story, you can stretch it out. But there's certain things that shouldn't be stretched out for 10 years. And here's an example. Smallville. Do you like Superman?
Mm-hmm.
Superman had 10 seasons. 5 of them were good, and 5 of them were god awful. Doing it for 10 years, you're going to set yourself up for failure. One season will be good, one will be mediocre. So you need to have a solid story. Like, for an example, Full House. Full House started, actually, yes, Full House, but look at Blue Bloods. Blue Bloods started off when they were, your age. And for 10 seasons, they said, okay, now they're in, I don't know, middle school. And so through the years, you see high school, then college, and then they get married. It's the same exact people, but you have a story formula. To do a show for 10 years, it's really hard. And I mean, people can write anything. I can write on this index card questions for the next 10 years. But it depends if you connect with the audience, and it's about ratings, it's about connecting with the audience, it's about keeping people engaged, it's about having your finger on the pulse and saying you're doing something that people will watch for a number of years. So the next question I want to ask you is, actually, this one's a good one. What are some of your biggest failures and what did you learn from it?
Um, so one of my biggest failures is there was this one audition that I did, and so my agency and my manager and agency, there's this one audition and they that I did, and they were like, you could fix this, 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 and this, and I'm like, I don't ever want that to happen again. And so I took their notes, and now I apply it into my everyday audition. I apply it into my auditions to make them 10 times better.
Now, I want to talk to you about social media. Can social media make you or break you? How can our fans and listeners get in touch with you? Are you, as you mentioned, are you on YouTube, TikTok, any social medias you would recommend?
Um, I am on Instagram and Facebook, and those are the ones that I would recommend. Instagram and Facebook.
And now, for people who want to follow, as I mentioned, going back, following your footsteps, what are some of the agencies you would highly recommend? Like for me, if I wanted to be an actor, what would be some of the advice you would give me, and what direction would you point me in?
Um, so I'm gonna go back to when I was little. What I did to be where I am right now. I went through Nikki Peterson's program, which is this acting program where you start at the beginning of the year, and for 10 months you train and they prepare you for the actor world. And then you go to California for 11 days to get an agent and manager. Well, so at the beginning, you've got stage fright, and so you start out with, you don't really have a knowledge of acting yet. But then they start by playing improv games. And then, so Brian Cunningham, he's an actor slash writer, and he puts us in duos, and he writes us custom scenes that agents and managers love. And so you work on those for about 7 months, and you work on volume. The biggest three things: volume, levels, and energy. Volume is, you really want to project, because if you don't, then how are the people in the back going to hear you?
Right.
How is the camera going to hear you? And levels is, you don't just want to give a performance that's blah, 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 blah. You want it to have levels. You want to be mad. You want to be sad. You want to be happy. And then for energy, you can't really just be like, It has to be up, because people don't go onto Netflix to see weak performances. They go onto Netflix to see strong performances that they're going to remember, and even maybe go to their friend and be like, hey, this show was amazing. You should watch it. So,
No, you're absolutely right. And I didn't mean to interrupt. I do apologize.
and so yeah, I would point you into getting an agent and manager. And then for my last thing, sorry, it's taken so long, but for
you
my
have
last,
as much time as you like.
I would say get into a class, because it really helps you. And like an actor's class, like John DeQuino, he is an amazing amazing coach, and he helps you understand scenes better. And there's also other classes that you can get into, like voiceover and all of that.
Well, if you're interested, I do have some people that would be interested working with you. I know my friend Elise Bowman, and if anyone who knows me, I love Dragon Ball. Elise Bowman does the voice of Pan, and she does, classes online. That might be something you'd be interested in. I know there's other people who do podcasts who would love to have you as a guest. But the last question I want to ask you is, what are you working on right now? And what is difficult about acting for you, and how did you overcome it?
So what am I working on right now? I am working on the thing that I booked, the 12 mile. Because it films, and we've also got to figure out costumes and all of that stuff. And then wait, what was the second question again?
Oh, what is the most, because you mentioned in the beginning you have anxiety. So how difficult is acting when you have stage fright and when you have anxiety? And did you overcome that?
So how I overcome it is, I say, you're Isaac. Isaac has stage fright and anxiety before I go onto the stage. And how I prepare is I go, but you're not Isaac. You're, John or whatever on the script. And that really helps me just get into my mind space. And then there's also this trick that I learned that helps you get out your jitters. It's where, so you stand up and you go, while you're jumping. And it really helps get out the jitters.
So pretty much you psych yourself up.
Yes.
Yeah, that's perfect. Now, I do have a couple questions for you off the air, but if you're watching this interview, go to Instagram. It's got to be on both our Instagrams. It's called Sit Down with Keith Andrew. I used to throw it in to my interview, what made you say yes about being on the show? How do you feel now? Now, I always have to post something on Instagram, and it's going to be on TikTok. And I'm like, why not use this and see on other websites how people react to it? It's called Sit Down with Keith Andrew. That will be coming up in a couple minutes. But wrapping up our interview segment, it was a real honor and privilege having me as a guest. And do you have anything you want to say to your fans and listeners? We're wrapping up.
Sit back and relax.